Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another video here on the SSA Philosophy channel, where we dive right on into the philosophy of characters from video games to TV shows to movies, etc., etc. So, of course, in today's video, we're going to be going over the philosophy of the character known as Connor Kenway. So, as always, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let us go on ahead and let's get started. So, Connor Kenway, also known by his Mohawk name, Ratan Haketon, is pretty much the powerful and brooding protagonist of Assassin's Creed 3. Now he stands as a unique figure in the Assassin's Creed franchise, both in his heritage and the time period that he inhabits. Now, unlike his predecessors, Connor is not, of purely European descent, but really he's the son of a Native American woman from the Mohawk tribe and a British father. Now, this mixed heritage, pretty much it shapes his entire life, creating internal conflicts and filling his motivations, throughout the game. So Connor's story, pretty much it begins in a burning village. Of course, basically, his story starts with him as a young kid, as a young boy, pretty much in the village, when he was younger, pretty much, starting off by playing with his friends, playing hide and go seek until he gets introduced, to like say a couple of men, being introduced to people like Charles Lee and to the other Templars like William Johnson, Thomas Hickey, Benjamin Judge, John Pitcairn. So pretty much, the story pretty much starts off, with Connor pretty much going through that, and then being knocked out like for about a couple of hours later, and then pretty much seeing his village burning down. You know, so pretty much witnessing the destruction, of his home and really the death of his mother, pretty much at the hands, and the thing is, kind of at the point thought that Charles Lee was the one responsible, for the one, burning down his village. But really, in truth, it was George Washington and the colonists that did that. As we find out later on, if you played the game, if you pretty much went through the story itself, on Assassin's Creed 3. So, of course, the colonists, were the ones who were pretty much the cause of his destruction of his village, his home, and the death of his mother. So really what this does is this pretty much sets Connor on a relentless quest for vengeance. Because really he's guided by a mysterious figure who becomes his mentor, known as Achilles Davenport, an aged assassin living in the American wilderness. Now, under Achilles' tutelage, Connor hones his skills as a warrior, and he learns the creed of the assassins, a brotherhood that is dedicated to fighting for freedom and order through the elimination of the Templars, which is, a powerful secret society who seek to control humanity through control of knowledge and power. While Connor, while he is a skilled fighter, and a loyal follower of the Creed, he is also a man of deeply ingrained Mohawk traditions. And what this does is this pretty much creates tension between him and Achilles, who represents a sort of more like, say, rigid, European assassin ideology. And Connor pretty much struggles to reconcile his newfound purpose with his Mohawk heritage and and really his rash actions. Really they often overshadow his strategic brilliance. So really the events, of Assassin's Creed 3, really they unfold during the American Revolution. So see, Connor is really thrust into the heart of the historical conflict, but his fight overall extends beyond, like, say, the colonists and the redcoats, because he recognizes that the Templars are manipulating both sides for their own gain, and aiming to exploit the revolution, to further, their control. And Connor, he finds himself fighting on the two fronts, one for the American Revolution, and of course the other being for the assassin cause. A struggle that forces him, to question the true meaning of freedom and the sacrifices necessary to achieve it. Now, Connor Kenway, really Connor, he's a very multifaceted character, because he's a Mohawk warrior seeking revenge, a devoted assassin fighting for a cause, and a man, caught between two cultures. So really his journey is fraught with loss, betrayal, and the constant struggle to find his place, really in a world on the brink of revolution. So despite his flaws and complexities, Connor's unwavering determination to fight for what he believes in really is what makes him a very compelling protagonist and a significant figure in the Assassin's Creed universe. Because, I've heard so many people, and I'll just say this off the record, I've heard so many people say, Connor Kenway is a boring, bland, dull character. I've heard many people say that before, but honestly, to me personally, honestly, in my opinion, those people are wrong. Connor, honestly, I would say, he's my favorite Assassin's Creed character of all time. My favorite assassin of all time, and honestly, the best Assassin's Creed character of all time. And I am not exaggerating when I say that because Connor overall is somebody that really a lot of people overall, who, I mean, like if you consider him to be your favorite, character, really he's the one that, you can relate to. He's like a character that you can relate to and you can understand like his motivation and really, like see all the hardships and all that he's been through, like from his childhood to growing up, and really it's like people who and people who say like that Connor doesn't have personality, that he doesn't have character, like those people are in my opinion no offense, but stupid because it's like I mean they never really took the time really overall to understand the character of Connor Kenway. I mean they never took the time to understand this very complex character, and really it's like Aiden Pierce from the Watchdog series, from Watch Dogs. People say the same thing about Aiden Pierce, how he's a boring and bland character with no personality and everything, but yet people don't understand, but like really Aiden and Connor, I would say, are both similar in the sense of both of them like being like very like serious and very like stoic characters, and really it's like, the losses that they've had, like with Aiden losing his niece, Lena, and then Connor, with his village being burned down and his, losing his mother, as well too when he was a child. I mean, really, it's like they both have like their reasons for why it is they are who they are. And on top of all that, like the thing about Connor in this case is like people say that he's not as charismatic like as Ezio, as Ezio Auditore in Assassin's Creed, like 2 and Brotherhood and Revelations. But the thing is, you have to understand the background, understand the cultures between the two. That's the one thing overall that I would say because that's the thing. Like Connor grew up in a culture that really overall was like a warrior culture. I mean, he grew up in a culture in where his own people were, driven off their own land, by the colonists and, basically were just being kicked off, thrown off, and really it's just like, I mean, how the heck overall can someone like Kana basically be like another Ezio character? Like, how can you be a character like Ezio in reality? I mean, why? Why should he be like Ezio? I mean, what's the reason? What's the purpose behind it? I mean, what is it exactly? I mean, so honestly, I never really understand why people overall would say that Connor is really a boring and dull character. I just never understand it. I just never can. I really never can understand some people these days when it comes to like characters, like Connor and such. I never understand it. I never will. But of course, with that being said, of course, I just had to pretty much dive right on into that because, really, I mean, I do find it like, like a lot of times frustrating, when people, call kind of like a lot of those things like a boring dull and just a bland character that has no personality, nothing like that. But really, like I said, I mean, I think those people are wrong in my opinion, but pretty much with all that out the way, we're going to go on ahead and dive into the philosophy of Connor Kenway. And this is what and this is what I like to call the Eagle and the Storm, a philosophy of duality in Connor Kenway. So Connor Kenway, this Mohawk assassin of Assassin's Creed 3, really is a character that is defined by conflict because really Connor, he embodies a clash of cultures, ideologies, and emotions. And this creative philosophy, really it explores the duality that shapes Connor's worldview and his actions. So the first thing we're going to focus on when it comes to this character, when it comes to this philosophy, is we're going to focus on nature versus civilization. Now, Connor, also, but like I said before, his real name, real Native American name, which is, Ratanakaton, raised by the Mohawk people and deeply connected to nature. Like, the thing is, he sees the world through and really, like, say, in this case, through an animistic lens, where the natural world is sacred and it deserves protection. Yet he's also Connor. Connor, of course, was a name that Achilles, his mentor had gave him. You know, that name alone drawn into like the burgeoning American civilization. So really, what this creates is this creates a tension because is he a protector of the wilderness or a participant in the very society encroaching upon it? So really, here's a little bit of a breakdown of Connor's perspective on both sides of the equation. So let's go ahead and really take a break, like pretty much have a breakdown of this. So on one hand, when we look at nature, Now, see, nature, we look at like three things: balance, freedom, and strength. Now, the thing is, the Mohawk believe in maintaining a balance within the natural world. Every creature plays a role, and humans must respect the power and the interconnectedness of nature. And then when it comes to freedom, nature represents freedom, from societal constraints. And kind of like he feels a sense of belonging and purpose within the wilderness. And then when it comes down to strength, nature really is a source of strength and resilience. So Connor's agility and his skills are honed through his connection with the environment. Now, on the other hand, when it comes to civilization, there's other three things, and those three things are corruption, disruption, and loss of identity. Now, when it comes to corruption, Connor witnesses the destructive nature of civilization firsthand, because the Templars, who represent, like, say, a sort of corrupt form of civilization, they exploit and manipulate for their own gain. And then when we look at the, and then when we take a look at the disruption, the growth of the cities and industry, it really disrupts the natural balance, a concept that Connor finds abhorrent. And then when it comes to loss of identity, civilization, it can force conformity. And it can also erase cultural identities. So really, Connor, he struggles to reconcile his Mohawk heritage with the demands of the colonial world. So really, that's the thing. Like Connor's journey, really, it's a journey overall. I would say is one of constant struggle because he sees the benefits of civilization, like law, order, and progress, but also its capacity for destruction, because he fights against the Templars, who seek to control both nature and civilization for their own nefarious purposes. And the thing is that the game doesn't really offer like a clear resolution, to this conflict because Kana ultimately tries to bridge the gap between his two identities. Fighting for a future where civilization respects the natural world and allows for cultural diversity. However, though, the game leaves a question open, and that is, can these two worlds truly coexist? And really, as the story progresses, his experiences further shape his beliefs, making him a complex and thought provoking character. And also, another little, like, say, tenet we're going to focus into is justice versus revenge. Now, Connor's initial driving force is vengeance because the Templar's cruelty fuels his rage, but the Assassin Brotherhood really what that teaches him, it really teaches him the importance of justice over blind retribution. And really, this conflict, it defines his choices because does he become a ruthless avenger or a measured instrument of justice, upholding the Creed's ideals? So really, Connor, like and like I said before, because Connor, like he is deeply connected to the wilderness because he sees nature as a source of life, wisdom and balance. Like the great tree, is like a sacred symbol representing this connection. And then, the Mohawk. Now, the Mohawk way of life, it emphasizes living in harmony with nature. Hunting is done with respect, and the environment is protected. And this emphasis on balance clashes with the destructive tendencies of civilization. Now, kind of like he witnesses the Templars, representing a corrupt form of civilization, exploiting natural resources for their own gain. And really, what this does is this actually fuels his anger and his desire for justice. And really, as Connor, as he embraces the assassin's cause, he really confronts the harsh realities of civilization, ones which are being war, violence, and social injustice disillusion him. So Connor really navigates this conflict by striving for a form of coexistence because he fights the Templars to prevent them from disrupting the natural order and harming the environment. And then Connor, he also incorporates, like, say, his Native American heritage into his assassin training, creating a unique blend of philosophies. Now, Connor's journey doesn't really offer a simple answer to the nature versus civilization debate, but really, I think what it does is that it highlights the potential for both harmony and conflict between these forces. Because really, he ultimately fights for a future where civilization respects the natural world and fosters a more balanced existence. And also, another part I want to focus on too in Connor's philosophy is tradition versus progress. Now, Connor respects his Mohawk heritage and the wisdom of the elders, but he also witnesses the limitations of tradition when faced with a rapidly changing world. Because really throughout the so yeah, really throughout the game, throughout the story itself, like he really grapples with how to preserve his culture while embracing the necessary change for survival. So the thing is that can he find a balance between honoring the past and forging a future for his people. So yeah, so the Mohawk way of life, really it emphasizes living in harmony with nature because they see themselves as part of a greater ecological balance. Respecting the land and its creatures. Now, this part of his philosophy, of Connor's philosophy, deeply shapes his worldview. So, like the assassin order, though focused on human freedom, it also values a respect for the natural world. And of course, in Assassin's Creed 3, pretty much, pretty much the headquarters basically being, the, Davenport homestead. And it also was, like say the headquarters as well too, in Assassin's Creed Rogue as well too. And really, so the Davenport homestead, really it functions as a self-sustaining haven, reflecting this balance. And then the Templars, Connor's adversaries, represent the destructive aspects of civilization. Their relentless pursuit of power and control leads them to exploit and manipulate both nature and humanity. And really, this clashes with Connor's belief in balance. And yeah, the British, like, say, colonization of America, really it serves as a tangible symbol of civilization's encroachments on nature. Because the colonists' disregard for the land and displacement of Native Americans really is what fuels Connor's anger. So really, Connor, like he feels a deep loyalty to both his Mohawk heritage and the assassin ideals. However, though, these two worldviews they sometimes clash because the assassins, like I said before, they focus on humanity. So yeah, really the focus on humanity, it can seem, at odds with the Mohawk emphasis on the natural world. And really throughout the game, Connor strives to find a way to reconcile these seemingly opposing philosophies because he utilizes his assassin skills to defend his Mohawk community and the natural world from Templar exploitation. And really, by the end of Assassin's Creed 3, Connor doesn't necessarily achieve a perfect balance. However, though, his journey highlights the importance of recognizing the dangers of unchecked civilization and the need for a more respectful coexistence with nature. So, really, he leaves behind a legacy that inspires future generations to fight for a more sustainable future. And also, another, like, say, part we want to focus on too in Connor's philosophy is idealism versus pragmatism. So Kana is initially, I would say, is idealistic, believing in the American ideals of liberty and equality. However, though, his experiences expose the hypocrisy of the new nation because he must reconcile his own dream of a just society with the harsh realities of power and corruption. Because can he maintain his idealism without succumbing to, cynicism, adopting a more pragmatic approach? So yeah, really Connor's upbringing amongst, like, say, the Mohawk people, really it instills in him a deep respect for nature, tradition, and community because he fights for their survival and their right to self-determination. So Connor, like, he's a firm believer in the assassin's ideals of fighting for freedom and order. He believes in those things, and he strives to create a just society free from Templar control. Connor, though, is also guided by a strong sense, of right and wrong because really he's willing to make personal sacrifices for what he believes in, even if it means going against authority figures. And then his Mohawk training equips him with, formidable combat skills because he's not averse to violence when necessary, often employing, brutal tactics to eliminate his enemies. So really Connor, like he forms alliances, with figures like say George Washington, and despite their differing ideologies, the thing is, despite their differing ideologies, he does recognize the need, for pragmatism in order, pretty much in order for him to achieve his own goals. And then when it comes to witnessing the brutality of the revolution and the hypocrisy of some colonists chip away at Connor's initial idealism because he learns that achieving justice it can be a messy affair. And honestly, I would say that Connor's internal conflict, I would say, is a major theme in Assassin's Creed 3 because he constantly wrestles with the question of how to achieve his idealistic goals in a non-ideal world. So really the thing is like, can violence, be justified? Can it be justified for a just cause? Because sometimes Connor's like brutal methods. Sometimes they contradict his ideals and he questions whether the ends justify the means. And then on the other hand is compromise a portrayal of principles. So when it comes to allying with figures like Washington, really it forces Connor to confront the limitations of idealism in the face of real world complexities. And then can true justice exist in a flawed world? The thing is, kind of like his experiences with the corrupting influences of power make him really question the very idea of achieving a perfect society. Ultimately, though, Connor's story, I would say, is really a testament to the complexities of revolutionary ideals because he represents the struggle to balance unwavering principles with the need for pragmatism in a world that is far, very, very far from black and white. And also another part I want to focus on into is the ego and the storm. So Connor's unwavering idealism, really it stems from a deep-seated belief in justice because he witnesses the devastation inflicted upon his tribe by Templars and the British and vows to dismantle the system that perpetuates their suffering. Now, Connor's initial reactions with the assassins really fill his hope for a world free from Templar control, and he envisions a society where liberty and equality reign supreme. So really Connor, like his unwavering idealism, really it stems from a deep-seated belief in justice because like I said, so yeah, so really pretty much, beat it again. But yeah, but really, that's pretty much overall what is the thing about Connor. Like that's the thing is idealism, it stems from a deep-seated belief in justice. And then on top of all that, his initial interactions with, the assassins, really it feels his hope for pretty much it fills his hope for for pretty much a world free from Templar control because he envisions a society where liberty and equality reign supreme. And then on top of all that, the American Revolution. Now the American Revolution is really it's a brutal conflict, forcing Connor to confront the complexities of war because he witnesses the violence and the loss of innocent lives, shattering his naive idealism. And then his quest for justice requires him to form alliances with figures like George Washington, despite their differing ideologies. Thing is that he learns that achieving even a semblance of his ideal world often necessitates compromise. So really Connor's fight, I would say, yeah, really I would say that Connor's fight really it blurs the lines between good and evil because he eliminates Templars who may not be inherently evil, but represent a larger systemic threat. And this challenges, like, say, his idealistic notions of clear cut morality. And really, the promise of a just world motivates Connor and really it grants him strength. And on top of that, it fuels his unwavering determination to fight for his people. And as Connor, like, as he delves deeper into the conflict, he recognizes that achieving his goals requires him to adapt and make difficult choices. So, rigid idealism proves impractical in the face of real world complexities. So really throughout the game, Connor undergoes a really, I would say he undergoes a significant transformation because he doesn't really abandon his ideals, but he tempers them with pragmatism. He learns that creating a better world often requires getting his own hands dirty and making tough decisions. And these conflicts, they intertwine, forming a powerful metaphor for Connor. And the thing is, he's the eagle soaring through the sky, representing his Mohawk heritage and connection to nature. But he's also the storm, a force of destruction unleashed by vengeance. So ultimately, Connor's philosophy lies in reconciling these conflicting, really these conflicting aspects because he strives to be a just protector, wielding his power for the good of his own people and the land, even when the world seems determined to tear him apart. And really, this philosophy, I would say it allows for a nuanced understanding of Connor because he's not just this vengeful warrior, or a naive idealist, but really he's a complex individual wrestling with the contradictions of his own identity and the brutality of the world around him. So really his journey is not one of a clear, really it's not one of clear answers, but of navigating a constant storm, searching for a path that honors both his heritage and his newfound purpose. But with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that of course is the conclusion of this video here today. But overall, hailed as a very complex and tragic hero by some, and criticized for being hot-headed and naive by others, Connor's legacy, I would 100% say, is undeniably impactful because Connor's defining traits is his unwavering commitment, his determination, and really it's fueled by a burning desire for vengeance and a deep belief in the assassin ideals because he throws himself wholeheartedly into the fight. And this dedication makes him a formidable assassin, but it also blinds him to the complexities of the situation. Now, he struggles to understand the gray areas, particularly when it comes to the American Revolution, because he sees the colonists as unequivocal allies, failing to recognize the Templar influence within their ranks. And by Templar influence, I basically mean people like, say, Charles Lee, for example, basically. So really, this, rigidity, it leads to some of his most controversial actions, like his impulsive nature and unwavering trust in the wrong people, like Washington, have disastrous consequences. And also, he isolates himself from his mentor Achilles, mistrusts, the warnings about the colonists, and ultimately destroys any chance of peace between the assassins and Templars. However, though, dismissing Connor as simply naive, misses the mark because really Connor, like he's a product of his upbringing, because raised by his mother in the Mohawk village, he witnessed firsthand the devastating impact of colonialism. His world is shattered by the Templars' actions, leaving him with an unyielding thirst for justice. And really, his stoicism and occasional social awkwardness, it can be interpreted as cultural differences, rather than like character flaws. And that's the thing that I'm really trying to get at, and this right here overall is definitely what makes like say characters like Connor and Ezio and any like and really other characters like Edward Kenway, and Arnold Victor Dorian, like all like characters that are so different, because of this. Because really in this case, like that's the thing, because these right here, they can be interpreted as that, as cultural differences, rather than just character flaws. So really the weight of his own choices, really it takes a heavy toll. Because really by the game's end, Connor is a broken man because he's lost his village, his mother, father, who, by the way, he was forced to kill, and his naive faith in the revolution. But the thing is, though, is that despite all these things, Connor still believes that things can still change. And really this tragic arc, I would say, is what makes Connor so compelling because he's not some flawless hero, but really he's a very deeply flawed individual struggling to navigate a world that's far more complex than he initially realizes. So really his journey is a cautionary tale about the dangers of pretty much the dangers of blind faith and the importance of understanding pretty much of understanding the, nuances of conflict. So whether admired or criticized, Connor Kenway remains a significant figure in the Assassin's Creed universe. Because really, his story is a testament to the complexities of human nature, the burden of vengeance, and the consequences of unwavering ideals in a world that demands compromise. So, really, he's a flawed but unforgettable character. A broken ego, despite his missteps, soars through the halls of Assassin's Creed's lore. But with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that of course is the end of this video here today. Of course, if you lasted long and watching this video in all its entirety, I want to thank you first and foremost. So, of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you like this video, don't forget, of course, to like it, to comment, and also to subscribe for more explorations into the minds of your favorite characters, and also to hit the notification bell to stay updated on my latest videos as well too. But with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is all I have today. So I hope you all have a very beautiful, blissful, happy, wonderful day. And always remember to always be smooth, to always be steady, and to always be aggressive. Peace.